it gives that preview and you think you're not live. And I've learned that little piece of conversation is live. And I was like, oh, I
Oops.
might start telling folks that we're live right there.
Yeah, you know.
It's all right, good. We wasn't saying nothing crazy. All right, now we're officially live. So good morning. This is another edition of the Full Court Press with Coach Jay. I have a special guest, good friend, Coach Dean Walsh of Union College in Kentucky. I'll let him tell you a little bit about himself here in a little bit, but I'm going to start him out with the funny question that I start everybody out with. Coach, when was that first whooping that you took as a coach and made you realize, like, yo, I really got to work at this to be good and be successful?
Wow. I mean, probably when I was working with Coach Wes Moore at Maryville College, and here I am literally graduating from college because I was finishing up my education degree, helping him out. So I'm 21. And, right. You know, you got 3 or 4 players coming up to you wanting to develop on things, and all at once, you're like, whoa, okay, wait a minute. I got to work on the time management piece of it. But the first wow moment, my very first job as a head coach was Hiawassee College. I was 23, 24 years old. Program won 3 games in 4 years as a junior college. It's kind of sad and scary. My very first, and I inherited a program that had 8 players. That's it. Couldn't recruit, didn't get much recruiting done. First game I go into, 2 of them aren't available because injuries. My first game is against St. Catherine's, who now the AD of where I'm working now was the head coach of that program. It was his first game as a head coach. St. Catherine's was worse than us. They had won 3 games in 6 years. So we're both inherited these programs. I finished the game with 4 players, and there was still 5 minutes to go in the game. So that was a woo moment, like, what do I do? But we won. And we actually played better because we were so used to doing 4-on-4 drills because we only had 8 players that they actually played better, more confident. But winning, you know, my first whoa moment happened to be my first coaching job as a head coach, winning with 4 players.
I had that happen to me at a couple of years ago at Pillion. We were playing a school, and I had split my program up. I only had 14 total. So I played 7 JV that day because we had to play in the same day, and I played 7 varsity. I got one better. I finished the game with 2 players.
That's when you realize, do I really need to be coaching this sport?
Right. I finished with 2 players. Surprisingly, we were able to still break their press with 2 people because I looked at the coach, I'm like, we have 5 on 2. I was like, it's cool. You got to play us again. That's the thought process I took. My girls were mad. I was like, no, don't worry about it. They got to come to our gym. We'll get them back. Don't worry. But we ended up winning the second time they came around. So you tell us about yourself and a little bit about your coaching journey.
That's probably going to be the hardest question because that's not something I'm used to doing. You know, as I was saying, I started very early, very blessed, very fortunate that that's happened. I've actually taken a year off here and there on 2 different occasions. So this past year was my 28th year. Should have been about 30. So I fortunately got involved at the age of 21. Became a head coach at a young age and was at the JUCO rank to start with, inherited a program that, well, as I told you, wasn't very good. And then finished our last 2 years with 27 and 30 wins, 2 Sweet 16 appearances. Moved on to my alma mater, Maryville College in Tennessee. Inherited a program that had its first losing season in 12 years. And then we won 19, and then we were in national tournament back-to-back years after that, including the round of 32. Then went on to Carson Newman. First 4 years, picked 8th in the league, finished no worse than 4th. Won the conference title for the first time. They'd won that in a long time, went to the Sweet 16, 4 national tournament appearances there. Then took a year off and then kind of tried my hand at the D1 ranks. Was an assistant at Gardner-Webb with Coach Rick Reeves as associate head coach, and then went on to Austin Peay. Then went on to lovely Converse right there in your hometown of Spartanburg. And we all know the issues that come with working there, and every coaching job has been a learning experience. Right. Hiawassee, I had my budget was $9,000 for everything. Yes. And so you learn from that. So that's why it kills me when some of these coaches talk about their budget. Say, trust me, I can work with toothpicks. You learn to make toothpicks work for you. But Converse, you know, you had a lot of issues there. All women's school, program that had won 28, 27 games in 14 years. There's a lot of things against you. So it was a rebuild. It was one of those test myself modes. Unfortunately, it about killed me, but it also allowed me to learn so many things that have brought me here to Union. We went to the round of 32 this year, won 26 games, which was a school record, improved 11 games from last year's team, was hired in August, so didn't have a chance to recruit, and they lost 3 key players. But this team, I honestly can say I've never had a team that has bought in and worked as hard in my 28 years as this one.
So I know we all have mentors and influences on coaching. So first of all, what made you get into coaching? And then who were your biggest mentors and your biggest coaching influences?
I was going to law school because I can argue with the stop signs, and now I just argue with officials. But Wes Moore got me involved, and Wes Moore for the longest time apologized to me for it. Of course, Wes has done tremendous things at NC State and every stop he's had. Pat Summit was a huge influence. I was a very close friend to hers, being really close to her, being in Maryville and Jefferson City and right there in Knoxville. Sylvia Hatchell, North Carolina, is another close friend. Got to know her really well with her being a graduate of Carson Newman. Huge mentor of mine. My college coach was a major mentor of mine. And then Rick Reeves, who's now at University of Cumberland's. And I was figuring it up one day. All those coaches combined have like over 3,000 wins. So as my grandfather said, you can throw enough crap against the wall, something's going to stick. So being around those people, something's got to stick. But the common denominator, every single one of them, was just work. I mean, you're only as good as your talent and your staff. Mm-hmm. But if you treat everybody with respect, which we have a hard time at times because today's climate, kids are going to get snippy. Other people you're going to be come at by several different directions. But just trying to maintain your own levels and just respect them. Understand that they don't like everything their parents tell them. They're not going to like everything I'm going to tell them. You can't be their best friend. Just respect and develop. To me, it's the fundamentals. You develop kids, and you can't question somebody's heart. They either have a heart or they don't. So if you get a kid who has heart and they work hard, you got a good chance of winning, over that kid whose ego thinks their talent is so much better than you. So that's what we try to develop. We try to develop the kids to where they totally believe in themselves and they can do things that they may be not capable of doing, but they put in so much work.
Right. That's pretty good. So, I've been talking about culture, and I've obviously this question is going to be answered differently by every single coach because they have their own way of it. But what do you think ultimately it takes to build culture in a program?
I think you got to be team led. I mean, I think the coaches and the staff can foster it, can kind of plant the seeds of culture by laying the groundwork. Here's what we expect. Here's what we want. We're not wavering from it. And as a coach, the hardest thing to do is when that situation comes up is, okay, I put it in rule. Here's what's going to happen. Now it's got to happen. Because the minute you don't, your culture breaks down. So and let's face it, we're human. We don't like making people upset. But I think fostering a good culture shows, you got your favorite players, but they can't be your favorite players, if that makes sense. You can't show it where she's going to get more benefits than somebody else. You got to, I think, remaining consistent, building the initial culture, but then from there it's buy-in. If you can say it all you want, yourself, myself, we can say all we want, but if the players don't believe it, they're going to do what they want. They're going to go to that party on Fifth Street in the corner, on Fridays. They don't care what the ramifications are. Say, coach won't find out. We're cool. Yeah, it comes from your leaders. So you got to pick your leaders carefully. And I always have a sit down with every one of my leaders saying, listen, leadership isn't fun. You are going to have to make tough choices. Can you make those tough choices? Because if you can't be a leader, not the vocal leader. You can be a leader, but you can't be the vocal leader. And we literally almost do interviews with our captains and let them know what we expect. And if they don't meet those expectations, or if the team doesn't, we come down on the leader in front of the players saying, listen, this is a leader. Leaders get scolded if they don't do what they're supposed to. And that tends to, the trickle down theory. If your boss tells you something and that's not going right, you're going to tell your people, hey, this didn't go right. I need you all to step up. And that has worked for us.
So when you got to Union, what was like, or when you took over any program, what is like the first thing that you do? And I know that could be different at every stop. I know Converse was probably different from Union, and then Carson Newman was different, and so on. But usually, if there's a common denominator, what is the first thing that you did when you took over those programs?
I call every player returning. I have done that everywhere I've been and let them know that I'm going to be transparent. And sometimes that did not go well because a lot of them, either from their last coach or just from background, they're used to doing what they want. And I'm not one of those people. So it comes across wrong sometimes. So I try to foster the communication right off the bat. I get to try to get to know them, know about their, almost like I was recruiting them. And then I tell them up front, yes, you're part of this program. Yes, you're going to maintain your scholarship for this year. But if you don't fit what our culture is and what we're doing here, then either your role is going to change or you won't be a part of us. And so we have those tough discussions up front. But what I found out is by doing that, they knew right off the bat, okay, he cares, he means it, so forth and so on. That's been the common denominator everywhere I've been. Is just get to know what they see. I honestly do not watch film on the team that I inherit because one, that coach's style is different. Their personality is different. So if I'm watching film, I'm going to be predisposed of what they're like already. So I literally don't, and they've asked me all year, Coach, you really didn't watch film on us. I said, no, I'm not going to. You're going to tell me what you're about. You're going to tell me where you want to get, and then we're going to go from there with what I do. So you're putting a lot of ownership back on them without knowing what happened in the past.
That's good. I like that. Let's talk philosophy a little bit. What is your philosophy offensively and defensively? You can start with either one and just, touch a little bit here and there.
Defensively, I want to play it, but and I say that because our first 6 games here, we couldn't cover a chair if we were seat cover. Philosophies were different, picking that up on that. I think our first 6 games, we were 3-3. We scored 85 a game. We were giving up 80. I mean, and we lost 2 road games that we had no business losing. Right. So my assistant, who is big time in the defense, coming from Hampton, she doesn't play. So she had a long talk with me, and I can tell she wasn't happy, and I wasn't happy. So we had a long heart-to-heart with the team, how we're going to do things defensively. To me, I'm not going to cut my nose off to spite my face. I inherited a program that wasn't a great man-to-man, but we taught the man principles. I'm still going to teach, we actually, for the first time ever, went to more of a containing pack line defense, which I've never done before. And it's just because we were long. We had length, we had size, but we had the speed of a sloth at times, laterally. And so we went to more of switching everything, which you have some of your players look at you like you're an alien because they're a post player and they think they got to guard a point guard. I said, well, if you want to be on the floor, you're going to get this done. So we do drills that build into that. It's a confidence thing. We just let them know that here's how we're going to be. There's no exceptions. So we did a lot more of a switching man and a matchup this year. Normally, I like to press. I like to push tempo. It's along the lines of Coach Hatchell from North Carolina, where we want 90 to 100 possessions a game. And I'm not going to do that through helter-skelter. I'm going to do that through pressure defense, limiting you to one shot, and then taking off and maximizing the quickness of our shot clock, and then doing it over and over and over. That's what probably going to go to more next year because we'll have more depth. And the players like that style in a way too. Offensively, I believe in a lot of freedom. I want players to play. Yes, we have quick hitters, but out of the quick hitter, very first days we're working on stuff, we go into my motion principles that I want to work on. Like next year, and I have it up here, our motion rules, it's unlike the men where you just freelance play pickup all the time. You don't see girls playing pickup on the street all the time. Guys do, so it makes it a little easier creatively. So the women game, we've given rules. In other words, we'll say nothing but back screens, ball screens, attacking the paint. Those will be our 3 rules next year. I don't care how they do it, what they do. Incorporate that in your motion, be creative with it, and we're good. And so we'll do that initially. So when the play breaks down, or that one player who forgets the play, and we all have them,
yes,
then somebody yells out motion. How many times have you run a play, somebody forgets it, and everybody stops and freaks out? They don't know what to do. We teach it right from the word go. If it breaks down, someone yells motion, and we go into the motion rules, and we're good to go. So a lot of freelance attacking, very aggressive. We want to get to the rim. We want to get to the free throw line if we can. anywhere from 22 to 25 times or more a game.
You said back screens, ball screens, and attacking.
Attack paint, grab paint is what we'll say. Those are our 3 rules that we're going to use for next year. And let's face it, you can scout it and say that, but you don't know when it's happening. You don't know what players are going to do it, because we'll literally do a guard post ball screen instead of the post guard. We'll mix it up, and it's just their own creativity. So if I don't know what they're doing, I don't know how you're going to know, which can drive you nuts sometimes. But we tell them it's okay to make mistakes. Next play mentality. As long as you're utilizing the rules, I'm good.
I think I'm gonna add those rules to my motion offense.
I have found when kids think less. Okay, we're asking kids to be creative. You can't be creative if you're thinking.
Correct.
You got to react. So that's what we started doing more of that last year, and it was huge. It worked really well for us. So
is your motion offense like is it 4 out, 1 in, 5 out?
It depends on our lineup. They can do it from a 3-2. They can do it from a 4-1. And our 3-2 is usually a high post, low post set. Where you're utilizing the middle ball screen, which has become the thing now and very tough to defend.
Right.
Because normally defensively, we're trapping all ball screens. I mean, one thing I learned from Coach Reeves, though, was 10 different ways to defend a ball screen. And so I can defend it any way possible, and we have, depending on personnel. But he was a huge factor in my defensive philosophies, and especially defending the ball screen. He's one of the best I've ever dealt with at defending a ball screen. And if ball screens run correctly, it's why the NBA does it. It's almost impossible to defend if you do it correctly.
Paul and John Stockton were successful with it for
oh my gosh, yeah.
years.
Yeah.
They just have running the Jordan. If they didn't run the Jordan and the Bulls, they win 2 championships.
It's true. And it's just, so it's a belief. And it starts with our individual workouts, which I think coaches do skill development. We do skill development that adheres to our offense. We do skill development that adheres to our defense. And if you put those together, it's like putting together a puzzle. I could take a puzzle, but if I got a big piece, little piece, it didn't go fit.
It's so good. I think you're like the second coach that said that, but it's so good to hear that skill development should be catered to your system.
It is.
Because why are you doing? I mean, yes, you're teaching them how to be individual players, but they still have to be individual players inside of your system. So if they can't develop for your system, then how can they be successful in your system?
It's like recruiting that athlete, and you run a point A to point B offense, or a Princeton offense, and that athlete's not going to be able to be creative. Or you're a 5-out team and you bring in a 6'3" post who can't run the floor. What are you doing to that person? And that those people are the ones transferring. You're recruiting them because they're a good player. Recruit players that fit your system. You're going to be successful.
I preach that all the time. I'm telling you, I do. So you blitz your ball screens when you have, I call it red, but for me in high school at the moment, I think, especially on the girls' side of the game, I think that when you trap a ball screen, that is like one of the most ways to be successful. Because I'm about like you. I like to push the tempo. I like to put pressure on you when I meet you. And I meet you in the parking lot. When you pull up, we're waiting on you. Yeah. And I like to create more possessions. I probably like to shoot a little more frantic than you do. I'll try to get it up in 10 to 12 seconds, but kind of like Paul Westhead and Lowell Marymount. With practice planning, let's talk about it. How much time, let's say you don't have a game or anything like that, but how much time do you and your staff spend preparing for that one practice that may be 2.5 hours?
I spend the same amount of time regardless of what we're doing. And it all begins with how the practice before went. What I've been doing is setting out a week plan. So I have goals to kind of keep me on task, especially in the early part of the year. When we're in the season, it's more or less, okay, here's who we're playing. Here's some skill development. Here's some things we need to really focus on because of who our opponents are this week. So I'll have my weekly plan in mind of general things. And then each day kind of depends on what time our practice is, how long our practice is, and how good the practice prior was. In other words, I'm a firm believer that if I set 10 minutes for a drill, we're only spending 10 minutes. I'm not going over it. But I'll make a mental note that, hey, we need more work on that. So we'll add that the next day. I'm not going to jump ahead because my plan says I need to be at point B by Friday. I'm not ready for point B. I'm not going to go there. I'm the philosophy of you can't catch every raindrop. So be good at what you're good at. If you're good at what you're good at, then you can expand from there. So we will discuss each day. I always take Coach Ebony's input of what she thinks we need to work on. She'll text me the night before from practice, say, hey, Coach, I working on the post today. I just don't think they're ready for such and such. And I'll say, okay, so we'll incorporate it. She's always coming up with something defensive. And she's had some killer drills that I've told my players we're about to do that drill and they all want to punch me in the throat. But so it can change daily, but we have a plan in mind where I'm going to spend X number of time. Every practice, we start with 5 to 10 minutes of ball handling. Every practice. I don't care if it's an hour-long practice. We're going to spend 5 to 10 minutes of ball handling. For the most part, in the beginning of the year, we're working on triangle passing, feeding, inside-out action, working on feeding the post. Because in high school, I'm going to tell you now, kids do not know how to do it. They don't. They don't know how to get it away from the post. And the post, it's on them too on positioning, but they just the type of passes. So we work on that constantly too. Those are two things we always do, but there'll be a defensive section, there'll be a shooting section, there'll be an offensive section, and we'll mix it up each day. But we'll spend X number of time on each thing. And if it's an opponent coming up, then there's always a scouting section. So it's broken down where it's organized. I may schedule early in the year. Yes, it's usually about 2.5 hours because it's about conditioning. But as we get into season, it's about 2. When we're deep into our season, we're an hour and a half practice. It's be good at what you're good at, get out. If you're drilling stuff at the middle or end of season that you should have been doing beginning of season or were doing the beginning of season, you as a coach have done something wrong. You've not moved those kids further, whether it's you've done too many things and trying to, it goes back to be good at one thing before you move on to the next. That's kind of how we go into our practice philosophy.
Well, that answered my next question. How do you decide what your focus is in practice? Because you just said it depends on the day.
Depends on that next day. It depends on that week of who we're playing. As I said, there's the absolutes, the ball handling, the passing, the rebounding are going to be done every day, every single day. But then it's going to be defensive emphasis. And it may be we decide they need a mental toughness day. And it is what it is. And, we may be playing 2 teams that are ranked coming up. So it's not about the opponent. It's about the mental toughness of that game. When you're getting hit in the mouth, how are you going to react? So we're going to talk about that as a staff of what we need to do. And again, it's about being good at what we do and being generic with what our opponent does. In other words, I'm big on handling opponents' tendencies and what they do, because it's less for them to think about. And they're still adhering to our defensive philosophies, which if you do, like national tournament, we played Taylor University, 7th in the country. We lose in double overtime by 2. They shot 43% as a team from the 3, hitting 15 threes a game. Every single one of them did it. So there's no need of worrying. And they shot it from tournament was in Iowa. They were shooting it from Nebraska. They were shooting it deep. So our philosophy was you got to get up in every single one of them. You don't worry about who it is, what it is. If they drive by you, fine, your help's going to be there. They hit 8 threes and shot 30% for the game. So it was more of the tendency instead of worrying about each individual. And I think a lot of times, and it depends on your level, we worry about each individual, and then the kids are confused when they get the numbers confused. They get everything confused. And so I'm thinking if we just defend the tendencies, especially with a switching man where you got to know everybody. Imagine sitting there telling your kids they have to know every single person on the other team of what they do. Exactly. So but if you tell them the tendency of what they do,
right,
then, and we have found that, again, we're just trying to simplify it and letting the kids play.
And that takes away some of the thinking so that they don't have to think about, this kid does this, and that.
Exactly.
I'm going to go back to your offensive philosophy because a question just popped in my head.
Yeah.
So you're keeping your 3 rules. What if a team is in a zone? How do you apply the back screen? Then obviously I know you can apply the ball screens and that type of thing, but how are you going to apply the back screens to that?
You can sit there and have your low post back screen, the top guard, and then have the wing slice down to the block. And then
top guard, wings, okay.
But in that same motion, my 4-man shoots a 3. So let's say, for example,
Can you draw that? I'm visual.
Yeah, I want to see. Let's see if it comes up. And we're trying something new here.
Yeah, I'm visual.
Well, let's just say you're in this zone, and part of our motion is the back screen, right? Mm-hmm. So you may have your guard as she's flying down, have this post slide out. normal reaction of a defender is if someone's sliding down, they're going to shift. The ball's here, they're going to shift anyway.
Right.
Okay. So if I back screen and her coming down, you put a lot of pressure on these two people here. While all that action's happening there, slide out your shooter and throw the skip.
Yeah, because that top wing is going to shift down because they're.
And what'll happen is she will go get it. But remember, I had this post back screening, right?
Right.
Oh, I dive her down. So I'm going to have an entry right there.
Got it.
And that all came out of the back screen action. And we're grabbing paint. She's running through the paint. She's diving to the block. So you got two of your rules in play.
Okay. That was good. I'm going to pick your brain more on that, but not in this. I'm going to call you.
That's something Wes Moore really taught me. I've not been with a coach that can on the spot, and I learned so much from him on this, and just reading how the game is being played and breaking away from so many times we have in our mind what we want to do, what we want to do, what we want to do. But the game dictates something different. And Coach Moore was so good at seeing what's going on the floor, coming in a timeout, drawing up something that we've never run before, and the kids go out there and do it. And we did that this year, and a lot of my players, they said to my assistant, said, how does he do that? And then we go out there and do it. We can't even run our normal plays, and we go out and do that.
That is so true, because they can't do any normal stuff.
No, but I think it's a focus.
Yeah.
If you sit there, and I had a professor tell me this one time, you have a captive audience. As a coach, as a teacher, we have a captive audience. A preacher, you have a captive audience, correct? Mm-hmm. If I speak to you with confidence and conviction, you're going to believe me, aren't you?
Yeah.
It may not be the right thing. I mean, cult leaders are a good example of that.
Right.
But they speak with confidence and conviction, and that group is looking for something to grab onto. The same thing goes as a teacher, as a coach, anything, as a leader of a company. If you speak with conviction and confidence and show results, your captive audience is going to believe you. So in a timeout, I see too many coaches huddling with their coaches, and then have 5 seconds to tell their players. Their players are waiting for you to say something. So get in there with conviction, get in there with confidence. It may be wrong. We're going to come up with so many wrong plays, it's not even funny. I'm still kicking myself for the last thing I did in their national tournament game. But you go with what works or you think is going to work. We're going to be wrong. And don't be afraid to admit you're wrong. That's going to help your conviction when the players look at you and say, well, he's doing this, we're good. So
you did that. I'm going to ask another question. I know I didn't plan to put you on the board today, but so that would have been out of a 3-out 2-in set because you had your post high and post low, correct? So if that was a 4-out 1-in, how would that same situation work, that post player?
And you're going to do your same thing. You still got your post. And let's say your 4-man is out here. Oh, let's go like that. Okay. I'm still going to run in with, and I'm going to say that's a 3 and 2 because my 3 will post up a lot.
Gotcha.
I'm still going to have my post up, set that up screen. Correct. And then my 3 will run through. But then what I'm going to do is now, because my pass is going to be made here, okay, I'm going to slide her up, hit with the skip, and dive.
Oh, okay. So it's basically setting up your skip pass to hit your dive man.
Yeah.
After the pass. Okay, I got it. Yeah.
And you can do it however you want. I mean, You can make this your shooter. Let's say that's your shooter.
Uh-huh.
You can have your shooter set that screen, and and have this as a post player. Have them dive. Well, that's automatically going to freeze those two.
Correct.
Right? You can send your shooter up through the middle, which now that's going to have this person. Okay, this person's already guarding that. So, you've got so many options where now this shooter flares out because that person's going to have to slide, and then you got the shooter open.
So when your 1 passes, your 1 stays put, or they cut through?
They can cut through. They read. We always have our point guard cut and read.
Okay.
Ball side, back side. It depends on, and part of the motion is our rules are to fill any, and we'll put beginning of the year, we'll set our court up with X's. Their rule is to be on one of those X's.
Gotcha.
That's the only motion rule. Be on one of the X's. It creates spacing. Then there's no second guessing where you're supposed to be. So if our point guard passes, she's here, passes, then let's say this guard was here and moved up. On this point guard, go fill that X. Okay. Point guard, go fill this X, because that's going to occupy that low post. So when the skip's made, she pops out. What's the normal reaction? Let's say I have a post here and the ball, and I have this, the ball's here now. If I drop her out, normal reaction is for her to go, right?
Wow. Yep.
Goes, I drop her down. What have I just created?
Open layup or a post up.
Or she stays. Now I've got a shooter. So the very, very beginning, we teach that, and that's where their creativity comes in. They know the only wrong thing to do is to stand. If you stand, I got a place for you. And it's not the bench. It's not even the bench. It's going to be in the stands where you can watch. You can stand and watch all you want. So, I mean, that's just some of the rules we put in, and we keep the rules simple, and we tell them the only time you can do something wrong is not communicate and not move and let the ball stick. We don't want the ball sticking in your hand. That kills flow.
I'm just typing all this down.
No, you're good. I mean, and that's why we are big on screening the zone. We will screen the heck out of you in the zone. Middle man, outside man, high man. We are big on it. So our motion plays into it all the time.
Yeah, that is really good. That's really good. Okay, so I lost track of my stuff. So listen, when I see something that can be incorporated into because I have a freelance motion offense, and it's kind of similar to Villanova. It's kind of a whole pass, you cut. It had a few rules, but to add a back screen to it, especially in high school, that's really going to be good.
Well, and I was talking about the grabbing paint. It's almost like the reading react, where your ideas on grabbing paint are grabbing the paint to score or penetrate and kick. That's the rules when the penetration part. When you penetrate, you want to penetrate with a purpose. That's why I always say grab paint. And we actually do a motion shooting series, which incorporates all of our shooting moves off of penetration. And a lot of that came off of what Calipari used to do with his read and react.
Correct. So you talked about individual workouts, skill development. How important is skill development for you, or do you think skill development is? Let's do it that way.
It's extremely important. I speak at high school clinics, and when one there in South Carolina for a couple of years in a row, and it never fails. You're going to have one coach that stands up and says, and I get this every time, so I'm going to use it now. He'll stand up and say, "Coach, we got JV boys and girls basketball. We got freshman boys and girls basketball. We got volleyball. We got this. We got that. We don't have gym time. Our kids will never run plays." And I'm like, okay, well, if you can't pass, shoot, or dribble, you ain't running a play anyway. And then I'll always say, and then usually people start laughing, and that coach gets mad. And then I'll say, let me add one more. How many times do you, and I generalize it here, I'll say, how many of y'all get mad at your middle school coaches for not having kids ready for high school? And guaranteed 80% of their hands are going up. Right. And I'll say, well, guess what? I'm just as mad at you all for not preparing these kids for college that could play college, because I should not have to teach a kid how to pass, dribble, or think the game as much as I have to anymore. And it's because every one of y'all want to just put in an offense because you're worried about what travel coaches are saying. You're worried about what travel coaches are doing instead of implementing the system that has helped you all win and teaching these kids to get ready for the next level. And I just most of the coaches, and then I'll usually get a standing ovation from several, and then that one sits down all mad as a hornet because he just got slammed down on his, well, we got all this. To me, that goes back to practice preparation. Maximize the most of your time. Right. Period. Don't think you got to cram everything into one little space. It's like that suitcase. Everybody thinks they're going to get that one extra piece in, and next thing you know, the zipper breaks.
Weight room. Let's talk about that. I know I for one, love the weight room. I think you should lift preseason, during the season, postseason, off season, whatever season you got. I think you should lift. Talk about how important the weight room was for your program and how important you think the weight room is in general.
It's very important. I think just from maintaining and stabilizing your body and what it goes through during the season. Preseason, we're fortunate. We had 2 strength coaches here. The problem was we lost one during the year, so we lost a lot of our strength training during the season. But we'll always incorporate push-ups in practice nonstop. They're doing that like crazy, so we're helping there. But I think it's very important our preseason is based on our system. And since we want to be up tempo and lean, our preseason workouts and weight room, we're in there a couple times a week, and it's geared towards that. It's geared towards the lean mass. It's geared towards getting them physically ready. In season maintenance only. It literally, we're just going to maintain. They're already worn out from 3 games in a week, so you got to be smart there so you don't burn them out. Postseason weights is more of strength building. We are really working on the bulking and the strengthening part in the postseason. So mine's 3-phased because you don't want to burn them out. And I think a lot of coaches do the same type of workout all year long, and then they wonder why at the end of the year their kids are dead. And I think your body overloads, and you can talk to a lot of performance coaches, talk to track coaches. They'll tell you about performance loading and how that helps. You've got one in your backyard, one of the best track coaches, technicians I've ever talked to, and a good friend of mine, Brandon Morton at Converse. You ever want to learn about speed training and strength training from that and overloading, reach out to him and tell him I told you to call him. I'm telling you now, your knowledge will blow you up. It's unreal what he will do for you. And he really stressed that to me, and it's been a plus doing it that way. But yes, it's very important. Your injury rates do decrease because you're not fatiguing the muscles.
So you said postseason, off season, you're bulking, and then preseason is leaning and getting mass for the
spring season is maintaining, off season is bulking, and preseason is lean. Yeah, it's more of the core, heavy on the core, and yeah, we are doing enough strengthening with the legs, lower body to help there, but at the same time we're building it for as if we were speed training too.
As a coach, everybody has characteristics, but what would you say that your 2 most important characteristics about you are? What make you as a coach?
Ooh. I'm very energetic and intense on that sideline. I try to be very positive with the kids, but I project. So some people see, the players understand that I'm not, but they hear me. I generally don't use a whistle in practice because I don't need one, but very energetic on the sideline. If I'm sitting, the players are wondering what's wrong with me. Very animated, almost like a big cheerleader at times. So I'd say that's really right there.
That's me. It looks bad because I'm 6'7", so it looks a little bad. I'm being that energetic, but that's me. I can't help it. Teams often have an identity. What is the identity of a Dean Walsh coach team?
We're going to work hard. We're going to be on the floor for loot. And I'd say a lot of coaches that know me or coach against me will know this. We will never, ever, ever quit. You can be up 20 or 30 on us and we're still coming at you. We could be up 20 and we're still coming at you. That MO, diving on the floor for loose balls, taking charges. I think our team has led our conference in charges drawn everywhere I've been including this year, last at least 5 years. So we're going to be like that gnat that gets on your nerves during the summer in the South Carolina heat.
Yeah, the good night. It's coming too.
Our MO is we are going to play hard. Guarantee we're going to show up and play hard. And that's something that we give no wiggle room on. Our kids know that if they're not going to play hard, they're not playing. I literally will just sit them. So
I understand that. If you're down 2 with 30 seconds to go and you need a basket, what offense are you running? What quick hitter? Or you just going to let your motion go?
It depends on the scenario, situation, and what we've had success during the game.
Gotcha.
It might be an inside-out situation. It may be a ball screening situation. It may be a 4-low. I honestly don't have one. We are going to take advantage of the weakness on the floor, the mental part. If we're sitting there and we know somebody's got 4 fouls, she's probably not going to want to commit her 5th. So we're going to attack that. We may sit there and we've done this where we let the clock run down and we have our 4-man and she's being defended by a kid who can't move. And then we'll go 1-4 low with her. And, my 4, and that goes the confidence part. If I did that at the beginning of the year, my post player would look at me and said, no way. And now she knows if I'm calling that play, I believe in her to do it, and she'll do it. So it really, we're going to try to point out and take advantage of what has worked. But then the other side of that is and sometimes as a coach, you overthink this, but I was taught this. If I'm the opposing coach, I'm going to think, Lord, they've hurt us with this all game long. Be ready for that. So I'm going to be ready for that, but I'm going to tell our girls to go with the counter to it. In other words, play into it, maybe a low post kick in, knowing they're going to come double, set up something on the backsides where our post ain't even thinking of scoring. They know they're kicking out backside all day on a back cut or something. And we've had that happen with one of our plays that we call 4 double teams. We added a wrinkle to it because of the way the team was shifting and had backdoor cut on it all day long. It just depends on the scenario and the game as it plays out.
One last question. What is your advice to aspiring young coaches who are trying to get into the business, no matter the level, they're just trying to get in? What would you tell them?
Work. Don't be afraid to reach out and call. I'm part of a mentoring call with the WBCA from its inception. And there's young coaches on all the time. I tell everybody I got asked to be on that because I was a dinosaur and been doing this forever. But it's just, don't be afraid to reach out. You may not know the coach, but you may like what they do or respect what they do. Me personally, you reach out to me, I'm going to help you because we need good young coaches. We need good young coaches that are doing it for the right reason. They're not trying to be the next John Wooden. They're just trying to be the best person they are, and they're trying to help these kids succeed because I've had 100% graduation rate with everybody that's finished their eligibility with me. So my goal is the number one goal is to have these kids graduate. And that's what I'm here for. I want to win ball games along the way. But network, as far as don't network to brown nose, network to learn, network to know. Do things like we're doing here, watch and listen and learn tonight. I mean, tonight's going to be great with the lineup you have for that. Those are the things that I would ask any young coach to do. And I know personally, if there's any young coaches out there listening to this, hit me up. I'll be happy to talk with you. And, because I could talk and help basketball all day long.
Yes, I really appreciate you doing this for me. And I hope that somebody watches this video tonight. I will be back live tonight at 5 p.m. as I have a coaches clinic that I'm doing virtually. It will be via Zoom, but I will Facebook Live it just in case my slots run out. Coach Walsh will be presenting tonight. I have a good lineup with Coach Nicole Woods, Jason Williams, Dedrick Taylor, Ed Giff, myself, Danielle Johnson, Antonio Snell. We have a pretty good lineup, and it's very diverse of high school and college coaches. I got a couple D1s, some D2s, and then we got high school coaches. So we'll be back tonight at 5 p.m. Eastern time for those that might be on the West Coast. But thank you for tuning in. I'm going to take us off live, Coach.